Question 1. The performance metrics show a significant increase in the average time to resolve service requests within IBM SmartCloud Control Desk v7. 5. Impacting user satisfaction and potentially violating established service level agreements. Which of the following diagnostic and resolution strategies is the most appropriate to address this implementation challenge? Option A. Escalate the issue to the vendor's premium support team without performing any initial internal diagnostics or data collection. Option B. Immediately implement a system-wide rollback of recent configuration changes, assuming they are the cause of the performance degradation, without further investigation. Option C. Conduct a thorough review of the service request management workflow configurations, analyze system logs for performance bottlenecks, and examine resource utilization within the IBM Smart Cloud Control Desk v7. 5. Environment to identify specific areas of inefficiency before implementing targeted adjustments. Option D. Focus exclusively on retraining all end users on the service request management process, assuming user error is the primary driver of the increased resolution times. Correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough review of the service request management workflow configurations, analyze system logs for performance bottlenecks, and examine resource utilization within the IBM Smart Cloud Control Desk v7. 5. Environment to identify specific areas of inefficiency before implementing targeted adjustments. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge where a critical business process, service request management, is not meeting expected performance levels. The challenge lies in identifying the root cause of the performance degradation within the IBM Smart Cloud Control Desk v7. 5. Environment and implementing a solution that not only addresses the immediate issue, but also aligns with best practices for service management and regulatory compliance. The pressure to restore service levels quickly, coupled with the need to avoid introducing further disruptions or non-compliance, makes this a professionally demanding situation requiring careful judgment. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach focuses on a systematic, data-driven investigation of the service request management process within IBM Smart Cloud Control Desk v7. 5. This involves leveraging the system's capabilities to analyze workflow bottlenecks, identify resource constraints, and pinpoint areas of inefficiency. By examining logs, performance dashboards, and user feedback, a comprehensive understanding of the problem can be achieved. Implementing targeted configuration adjustments, optimizing workflows, or providing additional training based on this analysis represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the identified root causes. This methodical approach ensures that solutions are effective, sustainable, and do not inadvertently violate any operational guidelines or service-level agreements, SLAs, that might be implicitly or explicitly tied to regulatory frameworks governing IT service delivery. Adhering to the principles of ITIL, Information Technology Infrastructure Library, which is foundational to IBM Smart Cloud Control Desk, ensures a structured and repeatable process for problem resolution. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves making broad, unverified configuration changes across the IBM Smart Cloud Control Desk v7. 5. System, without a clear understanding of their impact. This is professionally unacceptable because it risks introducing new problems, exacerbating existing ones, or causing system instability. Such a shotgun approach can lead to non-compliance with operational procedures and potentially violate data integrity or security policies if changes are not properly documented and tested. Another incorrect approach is to immediately escalate the issue to a higher support tier without conducting any initial investigation. While escalation is sometimes necessary, bypassing the initial diagnostic steps means valuable system-specific information is not gathered. This can lead to inefficient use of support resources and delays in resolution, potentially impacting service availability and customer satisfaction, which could have downstream regulatory implications if service uptime is a mandated requirement. A third incorrect approach is to focus solely on end-user training without investigating system performance. While user error can contribute to inefficiencies, it is unlikely to be the sole cause of widespread performance metric degradation. This approach fails to address potential underlying system issues and represents a superficial fix ignoring the core problem and potentially leading to continued performance issues and non-compliance with service-level objectives. Professional reasoning. Professionals faced with such a scenario should employ a structured problem-solving framework. This typically involves 1. Problem identification and definition. Clearly articulate the observed performance issues and their impact. 2. Data gathering and analysis. Utilize system tools and logs to collect relevant data. 3. Root cause analysis. Systematically identify the underlying reasons for the performance degradation. 4. Solution development and testing. Propose and test potential solutions in a controlled environment. 5. Implementation and monitoring. Deploy the chosen solution and continuously monitor its effectiveness. 6. Documentation and review. Record all actions taken and review the process for lessons learned. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, solutions are effective, and compliance with operational and regulatory requirements is maintained. Question 2. Governance review demonstrates that the current implementation of service request management within IBM SmartCloud Control Desk v7.5 is not effectively integrated with the organization's IT infrastructure and operational procedures, leading to inefficiencies and user dissatisfaction. Which of the following corrective actions best addresses this governance finding? Option A. Focus solely on reconfiguring the user interface elements of IBM SmartCloud Control Desk v7.5 to improve user experience without altering underlying integration or operational workflows. Option B. Implement a parallel manual process for managing critical service requests, bypassing IBM SmartCloud Control Desk v7.5 for these specific scenarios. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive review of the existing service request management process. Identify integration gaps with IT infrastructure and operational procedures, and reconfigure IBM Smart Cloud Control Desk v7.5 and associated workflows to achieve seamless integration and improved efficiency. Option D. Update the existing documentation for service request management within IBM Smart Cloud Control Desk v7.5 to reflect current, albeit inefficient, operational procedures. Correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive review of the existing service request management process, identify integration gaps with IT infrastructure and operational procedures, and reconfigure IBM Smart Cloud Control Desk v7.5 and associated workflows to achieve seamless integration and improved efficiency. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge where a critical business process, service request management, is not adequately integrated with the underlying IT infrastructure and operational procedures within IBM Smart Cloud Control Desk v7.5. The challenge lies in bridging the gap between the functional capabilities of the tool and the practical realities of the organization's service delivery. This requires not just technical configuration, but also a deep understanding of business needs, existing workflows, and potential resistance to change. The governance review highlights a failure in ensuring that the implemented solution aligns with strategic objectives and operational efficiency, demanding a corrective action that is both technically sound and strategically aligned. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach focuses on a holistic review and realignment of the service request management process within IBM Smart Cloud Control Desk v7.5. This involves understanding the current state of service delivery, identifying gaps in the integration with IT infrastructure and operational procedures, and then reconfiguring the tool and associated processes to address these deficiencies. This represents best professional practice because it directly tackles the root cause identified by the governance review, a misalignment between the tool's capabilities and actual operational needs. It ensures that the implementation serves its intended purpose of streamlining service requests, improving efficiency, and enhancing user satisfaction, all while adhering to the principles of effective IT service management (ITSM), as supported by the IBM Smart Cloud Control Desk framework. This approach prioritizes a thorough, evidence-based correction that will yield sustainable improvements. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to solely focus on technical configuration within IBM Smart Cloud Control Desk v7.5 without addressing the underlying operational procedures or IT infrastructure integration. This fails to recognize that the tool is a facilitator, not a replacement, for well-defined processes. It risks creating a technically configured system that is still disconnected from how services are actually delivered, leading to continued inefficiencies and user frustration. This is professionally unacceptable as it ignores the systemic nature of service request management and fails to deliver on the promise of improved service delivery. Another incorrect approach would be to revert to manual processes or external tools to manage service requests, effectively bypassing IBM SmartCloud Control Desk V7. 5. This is a significant failure in professional practice. It negates the investment in the tool and undermines the governance review's objective of improving service request management. It also introduces fragmentation and inconsistency, making it harder to track, report on, and manage service requests effectively, which is a direct contravention of best practices in IT service management and the intended use of a comprehensive solution like Smart Cloud Control Desk. A third incorrect approach might be to simply update documentation without making any changes to the system or processes. This is a superficial fix that does not address the core problem. The governance review identified a functional deficiency, not a documentation issue. Relying solely on updated documentation without implementing corrective actions in the tool and processes will not resolve the underlying issues of integration and operational alignment, leading to continued suboptimal performance and a failure to meet business objectives. This demonstrates a lack of commitment to genuine problem solving and a disregard for effective implementation. Professional reasoning. Professionals faced with such a governance finding must adopt a structured problem-solving approach. This begins with a thorough understanding of the governance review's findings and their implications. The next step is to conduct a root cause analysis to pinpoint the exact reasons for the misalignment. Based on this analysis, a remediation plan should be developed that prioritizes solutions that address the core issues, focusing on reintegration and process improvement within the context of IBM Smart Cloud Control Desk V7. 5. This plan should be validated with stakeholders to ensure buy-in and alignment with business objectives. The chosen solution should be implemented methodically, with clear success metrics and ongoing monitoring to ensure sustained improvement. This iterative and comprehensive approach ensures that the implemented solution is effective, efficient, and aligned with both technical capabilities and business needs. Question 3. The assessment process reveals that the initial implementation of IBM Smart Cloud Control Desk V7.5 service request management has resulted in a high volume of misrouted service requests, leading to significant delays in resolution and user dissatisfaction. The current categorization structure was developed by the IT department without significant input from end users or business unit representatives. Which of the following approaches would best address this implementation challenge and ensure efficient and accurate service request fulfillment? Option A. Conduct workshops with business unit representatives and end users to collaboratively define and validate service request categories, ensuring they align with business services and user needs, and then map these to appropriate support teams and workflows. Option B. Expand the existing IT infrastructure-focused categories with more technical subcategories, assuming users will eventually learn to select the most appropriate technical option. Option C. Implement a single, overarching general inquiry category for all incoming requests and rely on the service desk to manually triage and route each request based on its content. Option D. Create a flat list of all possible IT-related tasks that users might request, without any hierarchical structure, and instruct users to select the closest match. The correct answer is A. Conduct workshops with business unit representatives and end users to collaboratively define and validate service request categories, ensuring they align with business services and user needs, and then map these to appropriate support teams and workflows. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a common implementation challenge in service request management, SRM, within IBM Smart Cloud Control Desk V7. 5. The effective categorization and routing of incoming service requests. This scenario is professionally challenging because miscategorization can lead to significant delays in resolution, increased costs due to incorrect resource allocation, and ultimately, user dissatisfaction. Careful judgment is required to balance the need for granular categorization with the user's ability to accurately select categories and to ensure the system's workflow accurately reflects business processes. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it involves a structured, iterative process of defining service request categories in collaboration with business stakeholders. This ensures that categories are meaningful, align with IT service offerings, and are mapped to appropriate support teams and workflows. This approach adheres to the principles of effective IT service management (ITSM) frameworks, which emphasize clear service definitions and efficient request fulfillment. By involving users and stakeholders, it also promotes user adoption and reduces the likelihood of incorrect submissions, thereby improving operational efficiency and compliance with service-level agreements (SLAs), implicitly defined by the service catalog. An incorrect approach that relies solely on IT-generated categories without user input or validation fails to consider the end-user perspective. This can lead to categories that are technically accurate but confusing or irrelevant to the user, resulting in incorrect selections and inefficient routing. This approach risks violating the implicit ethical obligation to provide a user-friendly and effective service, potentially leading to SLA breaches and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach that uses overly broad or ambiguous categories, or a flat categorization structure, leads to inefficient routing and difficulty in reporting and analysis. This can result in requests being routed to multiple teams, increasing resolution times and creating confusion. This approach lacks the necessary structure for effective service management and can hinder the ability to track performance against defined service levels, potentially leading to regulatory or contractual noncompliance if SLAs are not met. Third incorrect approach that focuses only on technical IT infrastructure categories without considering business services can lead to a disconnect between what users request and what IT can deliver. This can result in a service catalog that does not accurately reflect the business's needs, leading to frustration and workarounds. This approach fails to align IT services with business objectives, a fundamental principle of effective IT governance and service delivery. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Understanding the business context and user needs. 2. Collaborating with stakeholders to define clear and relevant service categories. 3. Designing a hierarchical categorization structure that balances granularity with usability. 4. Mapping categories to appropriate support groups, workflows, and SLAs. 5. Implementing a feedback mechanism for continuous improvement and refinement of the categorization scheme. 6. Regularly reviewing and updating categories based on usage patterns and evolving business requirements. Question 4. The risk matrix shows a moderate risk of user resistance and a high risk of integration issues with existing backend systems for the IBM SmartCloud Control Desk V7. 5. Service request management implementation. Which approach best mitigates these risks while ensuring timely deployment? Option A. Delay the entire service request management implementation until all potential integration issues are fully resolved and a comprehensive, one-time training program for all users can be scheduled. Option B. Implement the service request management module in phases, starting with a pilot group of users and conducting thorough integration testing with backend systems before each phase, coupled with targeted user training sessions. Option C. Focus exclusively on configuring the service request management module to meet technical specifications, assuming that users will adapt and backend system integrations will resolve themselves over time. Option D. Proceed with a full, immediate deployment of the service request management module to all users, relying on post-implementation support to address any integration or user adoption issues that arise. Correct answer is B. Implement the service request management module in phases, starting with a pilot group of users and conducting thorough integration testing with backend systems before each phase, coupled with targeted user training sessions. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge where a critical business process, service request management, is being migrated to IBM SmartCloud Control Desk V7. 5. The risk matrix highlights potential disruptions to service delivery and user adoption. The challenge lies in balancing the urgency of the migration with the need for thorough testing and user training to ensure a smooth transition and minimize negative impact on ongoing IT services. A rushed implementation without adequate validation can lead to system errors, data integrity issues, and significant user frustration, ultimately undermining the project's objectives and potentially violating service-level agreements, SLAs, if not managed properly. The professional challenge is to navigate these competing priorities effectively, ensuring compliance with internal governance and potentially external service delivery standards. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes a phased rollout with comprehensive user acceptance testing, UAT, and targeted training sessions. This strategy aligns with best practices in IT service management and change management. By conducting UAT, the implementation team validates that the configured service request management processes in IBM SmartCloud Control Desk v7.5 meet the business requirements and function as expected in a realistic environment. Targeted training ensures that end users are equipped to utilize the new system effectively, promoting adoption and reducing the likelihood of errors or support escalations. A phased rollout allows for controlled introduction of the system, enabling the team to identify and address any unforeseen issues in a smaller scope before a full deployment, thereby minimizing widespread disruption. This approach demonstrates a commitment to service quality and user satisfaction, which are implicit requirements for successful IT service management implementations. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves proceeding with a full, immediate deployment without UAT or significant user training. This is professionally unacceptable because it disregards the inherent risks of system implementation. It fails to validate the solution against business needs, increasing the probability of critical errors impacting service delivery. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of due diligence and consideration for the end users who rely on these services. Another incorrect approach is to delay the migration indefinitely due to minor, unaddressed risks identified in the risk matrix. While risk mitigation is important, an indefinite delay without a clear plan for resolution is professionally inefficient and can lead to the obsolescence of the current system or missed opportunities for improved service management. This approach fails to demonstrate proactive problem solving and can negatively impact business agility. A third incorrect approach is to focus solely on technical configuration and overlook user adoption strategies. This is a failure in holistic implementation, as a technically sound system is ineffective if users cannot or will not use it properly. This can lead to low adoption rates, continued reliance on informal workarounds, and a failure to realize the intended benefits of the new system, representing a significant professional oversight. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such implementation challenges should employ a structured decision-making process. First, thoroughly analyze the risk matrix and prioritize risks based on their potential impact and likelihood. Second, develop a mitigation strategy for each significant risk, considering the trade-offs between time, cost, and quality. Third, engage stakeholders, including end users and management, to ensure alignment on the chosen approach and manage expectations. Fourth, adopt an iterative and phased implementation methodology, incorporating feedback loops for continuous improvement. Finally, establish clear metrics for success and monitor them post-implementation to ensure the desired outcomes are achieved and to identify areas for further optimization. This systematic approach ensures that implementations are not only technically sound, but also strategically aligned with business objectives and user needs. Question 5. Quality control measures reveal that a critical service request offering within IBM SmartCloud Control Desk v7.5, designed for reporting IT hardware failures, is consistently missing essential diagnostic information from end users. This deficiency is leading to significant delays in the initial triage and resolution of hardware incidents by the IT support team. What is the most effective approach to address this implementation challenge? Option A. Instruct all end users to append detailed diagnostic notes to the existing description field of the service request, relying on the support team to manually extract the necessary information. Option B. Modify the existing service request offering to include additional, contextually relevant fields that are conditionally displayed based on user input, and update the associated workflows to ensure the new data is captured and utilized by the support teams. Option C. Implement a new, standalone application for reporting hardware failures that operates independently of IBM SmartCloud Control Desk v7.5. Option D. Create a separate, more complex service request offering for hardware failures that requires users to fill out an extensive list of technical specifications upfront. The correct answer is B. Modify the existing service request offering to include additional, contextually relevant fields that are conditionally displayed based on user input, and update the associated workflows to ensure the new data is captured and utilized by the support teams. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge where the initial design of a service request offering in IBM SmartCloud Control Desk v7.5 does not adequately capture critical information required for effective incident resolution and service restoration. The challenge lies in balancing the need for comprehensive data collection with the user experience, ensuring that the service request remains intuitive and efficient to submit. Overly complex or incomplete forms can lead to user frustration, delayed submissions, and ultimately longer resolution times, impacting service-level agreements, SLAs. The professional challenge is to identify the root cause of this data gap and implement a solution that is both technically sound within the SCCD framework and operationally effective for the support teams. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the existing service request offering and its associated workflows. This includes consulting with the end users who submit requests and the support teams who act upon them to understand the missing information and its impact. Based on this feedback, the offering can be modified by adding relevant fields, configuring conditional logic to display fields only when necessary, and updating associated workflows to ensure the new data is utilized. This iterative process, grounded in user feedback and operational needs, represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the identified deficiency, improves data quality, and enhances the efficiency of the service request lifecycle. This aligns with the principles of effective IT service management, ITSM, by ensuring that the tools and processes support the delivery of services and the resolution of issues in a timely and effective manner. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to simply add a large number of mandatory fields to the existing service request form without considering user experience or workflow integration. This would likely lead to user resistance, increased submission errors, and a decrease in the adoption of the service request system, failing to meet the goal of efficient service management. Ethically, it could be seen as a failure to adequately consider the impact on the end user, a key stakeholder. Another incorrect approach would be to bypass the standard service request offering and instruct users to submit detailed information via email or other ad hoc methods. This fragments information, bypasses the structured workflow within SCCD, and makes it impossible to track, report on, or automate the service request process effectively. This represents a significant failure in adhering to the established ITSM framework and regulatory guidelines for structured incident and service request management, leading to a lack of auditability and control. A third incorrect approach would be to implement a technical fix that adds fields but does not update the underlying workflows or reporting mechanisms. This would result in data being collected but not utilized, rendering the change ineffective and wasting resources. It demonstrates a lack of holistic understanding of the SCCD implementation and ITSM processes, failing to deliver tangible improvements. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach this situation by first performing a thorough impact analysis. This involves understanding the consequences of the missing data on incident resolution, SLA adherence, and reporting. Next, stakeholder analysis is crucial to gather input from both end users and support teams. The solution should then be designed collaboratively, prioritizing changes that offer the greatest benefit with the least disruption. Implementation should follow a phased approach with testing and validation at each stage. Continuous monitoring and feedback loops are essential to ensure the solution remains effective and to identify any further areas for improvement. This structured, user-centric, and process-oriented approach ensures that technical solutions align with business objectives and adhere to best practices in IT service management. Question 6. The performance metrics show a significant increase in the backlog of unassigned and incompletely documented service requests, coinciding with a recent organizational change that has led to increased user activity. The implementation team is under pressure to clear this backlog quickly to demonstrate the value of the new system. Which approach best balances the need for rapid backlog reduction with the integrity of the service request management process within IBM SmartCloud Control Desk v7.5? Option A. Create temporary, simplified ticket types for the backlog items to allow for rapid closure, with a plan to recategorize and fully document them after the backlog is cleared. Option B. Expedite backlog reduction by assigning all unassigned requests to a general queue for immediate review and closure deferring detailed categorization and documentation to a later, less pressured period. Option C. Prioritize assigning and documenting all service requests according to their defined categories and workflows, even if it means a slower initial reduction of the backlog, to ensure data accuracy and auditability. Option D. Focus on closing the oldest service requests first, regardless of their documentation status, to show a reduction in ticket age and improve perceived system responsiveness. The correct answer is C. Prioritize assigning and documenting all service requests according to their defined categories and workflows, even if it means a slower initial reduction of the backlog, to ensure data accuracy and auditability. Explanation. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in service request management, balancing the need for rapid issue resolution with the requirement for thorough, compliant documentation. The professional challenge lies in navigating the pressure to expedite service delivery without compromising the integrity of audit trails and adherence to IBM SmartCloud Control Desk v7.5's intended workflows, which are designed to ensure accountability and traceability. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes maintaining the integrity of the system's audit capabilities and compliance with IBM's recommended implementation guidelines for service request management. By ensuring all service requests are properly categorized, assigned, and documented within the system, even under pressure, the implementation team upholds the principles of good governance, data accuracy, and audit readiness. This aligns with the implicit regulatory expectation of maintaining accurate and verifiable records for operational processes, which is crucial for any IT service management framework. An incorrect approach that bypasses standard documentation procedures for speed would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It undermines the auditability of service requests, making it impossible to track the lifecycle of an issue, identify root causes, or demonstrate compliance with any potential internal or external audit requirements. This lack of transparency and accountability is professionally unacceptable and could lead to significant risks, including data integrity breaches, security vulnerabilities, and an inability to demonstrate due diligence. Another incorrect approach that focuses solely on closing tickets without proper resolution steps would fail to meet the core objective of service request management, leading to recurring issues and customer dissatisfaction, which indirectly impacts compliance with service-level agreements and operational efficiency standards. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the implementation objectives, the capabilities and constraints of IBM SmartCloud Control Desk v7.5, and the underlying principles of IT service management and regulatory compliance. When faced with pressure, professionals should 1. Reiterate the importance of process adherence and the long-term consequences of shortcuts. 2. Seek to understand the root cause of the pressure. Is it a temporary surge, a systemic issue, or a misunderstanding of the process? 3. Explore ways to optimize the existing process for speed without sacrificing essential documentation, perhaps through improved training or workflow adjustments. 4. Escalate concerns to management if the pressure to deviate from best practices is persistent and poses significant risks. Question 7. Stakeholder feedback indicates a strong desire to add several new fields to the standard service request forms within IBM SmartCloud Control Desk v7.5 to capture more detailed information for reporting and operational tracking. These proposed fields range from specific equipment serial numbers for IT hardware requests to detailed project codes for HR-related service requests. The implementation team is concerned about the potential impact on user experience, data quality, and system performance if all requested fields are added indiscriminately. Which of the following approaches best addresses this implementation challenge while adhering to best practices in service request management and ensuring efficient system utilization? Option A. Prioritize the implementation of fields that are technically easiest to add to the IBM SmartCloud Control Desk v7.5 interface, regardless of their direct business impact or necessity. Option B. Reject all new field requests initially, citing potential system complexity, and inform stakeholders that the current configuration is sufficient for operational needs. Option C. Conduct a thorough business value analysis for each proposed field, assessing its necessity for fulfillment, reporting, or compliance, and prioritize implementation based on this analysis, potentially using a phased rollout. Option D. Immediately implement all requested fields to satisfy stakeholder demands and demonstrate responsiveness, addressing any performance or usability issues post-implementation. Correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough business value analysis for each proposed field, assessing its necessity for fulfillment, reporting, or compliance, and prioritize implementation based on this analysis, potentially using a phased rollout. Explanation. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in service request management, balancing the desire for comprehensive data capture with the practical need for user efficiency and system performance. Stakeholders often request numerous fields to be added to service request forms, believing that more data equates to better service or reporting. However, without careful consideration, this can lead to overly complex forms, increased data entry time for users, potential for incomplete or inaccurate data, and performance degradation within IBM SmartCloud control desk. Challenge lies in discerning which data points are truly essential for effective service request fulfillment, reporting, and downstream processes, versus those that are merely desirable or redundant. The correct approach involves a structured, data-driven methodology for evaluating and prioritizing new fields. This aligns with best practices in IT service management, ITSM, frameworks, such as ITIL, which emphasize aligning IT services with business needs. Specifically, it requires a thorough analysis of the business value and impact of each proposed field. This includes understanding how the data will be used, who will use it, and what benefits it will bring. Implementing a phased approach, starting with essential fields and iteratively adding others based on demonstrated need and positive impact, is crucial. This also involves clear communication with stakeholders about the rationale behind decisions, managing expectations, and demonstrating the benefits of a streamlined process. This approach ensures that the implementation of IBM SmartCloud Control Desk remains aligned with operational efficiency and business objectives, avoiding unnecessary complexity and potential compliance risks associated with poorly managed data. An incorrect approach would be to blindly add all requested fields without proper justification. This fails to adhere to principles of efficient system design and can lead to significant operational inefficiencies. From a regulatory and ethical standpoint, this can be problematic if the added fields are not necessary for compliance, or if they inadvertently introduce data privacy risks by collecting excessive personal information without a clear business purpose. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss stakeholder requests outright without any evaluation. This demonstrates a lack of engagement and can lead to dissatisfaction, undermining the perceived value of the service request management system and potentially causing stakeholders to seek workarounds that bypass the system, leading to data silos and compliance issues. A third incorrect approach is to prioritize technical feasibility over business value. While technical limitations are important, the primary driver for implementing new fields should be their contribution to business objectives and service delivery, not simply the ease of adding them to the system. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the business requirements, a robust process for evaluating proposed changes, and effective stakeholder management. This includes 1. Requirement gathering and validation. Understand the why behind each requested field. 2. Impact assessment. Evaluate the technical, operational, and business impact of adding the field. 3. Prioritization. Rank fields based on business value, necessity, and feasibility. 4. Prototyping and testing. Pilot new fields with a subset of users to gather feedback. 5. Communication and change management. Clearly communicate decisions and manage stakeholder expectations. 6. Iterative improvement. Continuously review and refine the service request process. Question 8. System analysis indicates that during the implementation of IBM SmartCloud Control Desk v7. 5. For service request management, a significant portion of the existing service catalog data intended for migration contains duplicate entries and outdated service descriptions. The project timeline is aggressive, and the team is under pressure to go live. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible approach to address this data discrepancy? Option A. Halt the migration process and dedicate sufficient time and resources to thoroughly cleanse and validate all service catalog data before proceeding with the migration. Option B. Migrate the data with the known discrepancies, assuming users will adapt and report issues as they arise, which can then be addressed individually. Option C. Manually correct a subset of the most critical service entries during the migration process and migrate the rest with the existing inaccuracies. Option D. Proceed with the migration of the data as is, with a plan to address the duplicates and outdated descriptions in a subsequent post-implementation phase. The correct answer is D. Proceed with the migration of the data as is, with a plan to address the duplicates and outdated descriptions in a subsequent post-implementation phase. Explanation: this scenario presents an ethical dilemma common in IT service management, specifically concerning the implementation of IBM SmartCloud Control Desk, SCCD v7. 5. For service request management. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for a functional system with the ethical obligation to ensure data integrity and user trust, especially when dealing with potentially sensitive information. The core conflict arises from a shortcut that compromises data accuracy for expediency. The correct approach involves prioritizing data integrity and transparency, even if it means a slight delay or additional effort. This aligns with ethical principles of honesty and accountability in professional IT practice. By thoroughly validating and cleansing the data before migration, the implementation team upholds the trust of the end users and stakeholders, ensuring that the SCCD system accurately reflects the service catalog and associated requests. This proactive measure prevents future issues stemming from inaccurate data, such as incorrect service fulfillment, misallocated resources, or user dissatisfaction. Adhering to established data migration best practices and internal governance policies, which implicitly or explicitly mandate data accuracy, is paramount. An incorrect approach that involves migrating the data with known inaccuracies, even with the intention to correct it later, represents a significant ethical failure. This action breaches the principle of honesty by presenting incomplete or misleading information. It also undermines accountability, as the team is aware of the data's flaws but proceeds regardless. Such a shortcut can lead to a cascade of problems. Users may submit requests based on incorrect service offerings, leading to misdirected fulfillment efforts and wasted resources. Furthermore, it erodes user confidence in the SCCD system and the IT department's ability to manage it effectively. This approach violates the implicit contract of providing reliable IT services and could lead to reputational damage for the IT team and the organization. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the data discrepancies and proceed with the migration without any plan for correction, is equally problematic. This demonstrates a lack of diligence and professional responsibility. It suggests an indifference to the quality of the service being delivered and a failure to anticipate the downstream consequences of poor data management. This can result in a system that is fundamentally flawed from its inception, leading to ongoing operational inefficiencies and a constant struggle to rectify errors. It also fails to meet the basic expectation of a functional and reliable service request management system. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear assessment of the risks associated with each course of action. This includes evaluating the potential impact on data integrity, user experience, operational efficiency, and organizational reputation. The team should consult relevant project documentation, organizational policies on data management and system implementation, and engage in open communication with stakeholders to discuss the implications of the data quality issues. The preferred path is always the one that upholds ethical standards, prioritizes data accuracy, and ensures the long-term success and reliability of the implemented system, even if it requires more time or resources in the short term. Question 9. The audit findings indicate that a service request was resolved by accessing and reviewing a user's personal contact information stored within IBM SmartCloud Control Desk, without a documented business justification or explicit user consent for this specific access. The system technically allowed this access. What is the most appropriate ethical and professional course of action? Option A. Escalate the audit finding to the IT security team for immediate investigation and implement a temporary moratorium on all service request resolutions involving personal data until a formal policy review is completed. Option B. Document the access retrospectively in the service request ticket, stating that the access was necessary for resolution, and continue the practice for similar future requests. Option C. Immediately cease all access to user personal data within the system and initiate a review of access logs and existing policies to identify and rectify any unauthorized access or policy gaps. Option D. Proceed with resolving future service requests by accessing user personal data as needed, assuming the system's capability implies implicit permission for efficient problem solving. The correct answer is C. Immediately cease all access to user personal data within the system and initiate a review of access logs and existing policies to identify and rectify any unauthorized access or policy gaps. Explanation. This scenario presents an ethical dilemma common in IT service management, particularly concerning data privacy and the responsible use of system capabilities. The challenge lies in balancing the need for comprehensive service request resolution with the ethical obligation to protect user data and adhere to established privacy policies. The auditor's findings highlight a potential breach of trust and a deviation from best practices in handling sensitive information within IBM SmartCloud control desk. The correct approach prioritizes adherence to established data privacy policies and ethical guidelines. It recognizes that while the system may possess the technical capability to access certain data, the authorization and justification for such access must be clearly defined and followed. This approach upholds user privacy, maintains data integrity, and ensures compliance with any relevant data protection regulations that would govern the use of such a system. It demonstrates a commitment to ethical data handling and reinforces the trust placed in the service management team. An incorrect approach that involves accessing user data without explicit authorization or a documented business need, even if for the perceived benefit of resolving a service request, constitutes a significant ethical and potentially regulatory failure. This action violates the principle of least privilege and can lead to unauthorized disclosure of sensitive information, eroding user trust and exposing the organization to reputational damage and legal repercussions. It demonstrates a disregard for established protocols and a lack of understanding of the ethical responsibilities associated with managing sensitive data. Another incorrect approach might be to ignore the audit finding, which would be a failure to address a potential compliance issue and a dereliction of duty to maintain system integrity and ethical standards. This inaction allows a problematic practice to persist, increasing the risk of future breaches and undermining the audit process. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the specific policies and regulations governing data access and privacy. When faced with a situation where system capabilities might tempt a deviation from these rules, the professional should first seek clarification from their manager or the relevant compliance officer. They should then evaluate the proposed action against the established ethical code and documented procedures. If a conflict arises, the ethical and compliant path, even if it requires more effort or time, must be chosen. This involves documenting all decisions and actions taken, especially when they involve sensitive data or potential policy deviations. Question 10. Operational review demonstrates that a critical service outage is impacting multiple users, and preliminary investigation suggests a potential configuration error within a user's profile that is propagating the issue. The IT support specialist has the technical capability to directly access and review individual user profile data within IBM SmartCloud Control Desk V7. 5. To identify and rectify the error. But this direct access bypasses the standard incident management protocol for data access requests. What is the most ethically and professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Attempt to resolve the issue by making broad system-wide configuration changes that might affect other services, hoping to incidentally fix the user profile problem. Option B. Advise users to temporarily disable the affected service until a full investigation can be completed through the standard, albeit slower, incident resolution process. Option C. Escalate the incident to the incident management team, requesting a formal data access request for the specific user profile data required to diagnose and resolve the issue, adhering to established protocols. Option D. Immediately access the user profile data directly to identify and correct the configuration error, prioritizing the restoration of service for all affected users. The correct answer is D. Immediately access the user profile data directly to identify and correct the configuration error, prioritizing the restoration of service for all affected users. Explanation. This scenario presents an ethical dilemma common in IT service management, particularly concerning data privacy and the responsible use of system capabilities. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for information to resolve a critical incident with the potential for misuse of privileged access and the breach of user privacy. IBM SmartCloud Control Desk V7. 5. Like any robust ITSM tool, provides powerful functionalities that, if not governed by strict ethical guidelines and adherence to established protocols, can lead to unintended consequences. The correct approach prioritizes adherence to established data privacy policies and incident response procedures. This involves seeking authorized access through the proper channels, ensuring that any data accessed is strictly relevant to the incident, and maintaining a clear audit trail. This aligns with best practices in IT governance and ethical conduct, which mandate transparency, accountability, and respect for user privacy. By following the established incident management process, the IT professional upholds the integrity of the system and the trust placed in them by users and the organization. This approach minimizes the risk of unauthorized data access and potential misuse, thereby preventing regulatory noncompliance and reputational damage. An incorrect approach would involve bypassing established procedures to gain direct access to user data without proper authorization. This could manifest as attempting to directly query databases or use administrative tools in an ad hoc manner, driven by a sense of urgency. Such actions, even with good intentions, represent a significant ethical and regulatory failure. They violate principles of data privacy, potentially contravening regulations that govern the handling of personal information. This bypass of protocol erodes trust, creates a precedent for unauthorized access, and can lead to severe disciplinary action and legal repercussions for both the individual and the organization. Another incorrect approach might be to ignore the incident altogether due to the perceived complexity of accessing the necessary information through proper channels. This failure to act, when a resolution is within reach through ethical means, is also professionally unacceptable, as it neglects the core responsibility of service delivery and incident resolution. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of organizational policies, data privacy regulations, and the incident response framework. When faced with a critical incident, the first step is to consult the established procedures for incident resolution and data access. If there is ambiguity or a need for escalation, this should be done promptly. The principle of least privilege should always be applied, meaning access should be granted only to the minimum data and system functions necessary to resolve the issue. Documentation and transparency are paramount. All actions taken and data accessed must be logged and auditable. Question 11. The control framework reveals that during the implementation of IBM SmartCloud Control Desk V7. 5. A consultant discovers a critical security vulnerability in a third-party integration module that could compromise sensitive customer data. The client is pushing for a timely and cost-effective completion of the project, expressing reluctance to incur additional expenses or delays for re-evaluating vendor components. What is the most ethically and professionally responsible course of action for the consultant? Option A. Discreetly attempt to patch the vulnerability without informing the client or the third-party vendor to avoid project disruption. Option B. Proceed with the implementation as planned, assuming the vulnerability is minor and unlikely to be exploited, to meet client expectations for timely completion. Option C. Immediately report the vulnerability to the client, detailing the risks and recommending remediation, even if it impacts the project timeline and budget. Option D. Advise the client that the vulnerability is the third-party vendor's responsibility, and that the consultant's scope of work does not include addressing such issues. Correct answer is C. Immediately report the vulnerability to the client, detailing the risks and recommending remediation, even if it impacts the project timeline and budget. Explanation. The control framework reveals a situation where a consultant, implementing IBM SmartCloud Control Desk V7. 5 for a client, discovers a potential security vulnerability in a custom integration developed by a third-party vendor. This vulnerability, if exploited, could expose sensitive customer data managed by the Service Request Management module. The consultant is under pressure to complete the implementation on time and within budget, and the client has expressed a strong preference for avoiding any delays or additional costs associated with re-evaluating third-party components. This scenario presents a significant ethical dilemma, balancing professional responsibility to protect client data against contractual obligations and client expectations. The correct approach involves prioritizing the security and integrity of the client's data and the system's compliance with relevant data protection regulations. This means immediately and transparently reporting the discovered vulnerability to the client, providing a clear assessment of the risks, and recommending appropriate remediation steps, even if it impacts the project timeline or budget. This aligns with the ethical duty of a professional to act in the best interest of their client and to uphold the integrity of the systems they implement. It also reflects a commitment to responsible technology deployment, ensuring that security is not compromised for expediency. An incorrect approach would be to ignore or downplay the vulnerability to meet project deadlines or avoid client dissatisfaction. This failure to disclose a known security risk constitutes a breach of professional ethics and potentially violates regulatory requirements related to data security and breach notification. Such an action could lead to severe consequences for the client, including data breaches, financial losses, reputational damage, and legal penalties. Furthermore, it undermines the trust placed in the consultant and the integrity of the implementation. Another incorrect approach would be to attempt to fix the vulnerability without proper authorization or without informing the client and the third-party vendor. This could lead to unintended consequences, further system instability, or intellectual property issues. It bypasses established change control processes and lacks transparency, which are crucial for maintaining system integrity and accountability. The professional decision-making process in such a situation should involve 1. Identifying the ethical conflict, balancing project constraints with professional duty. 2. Assessing the risk, understanding the potential impact of the vulnerability on data security and client operations. 3. Consulting relevant professional codes of conduct and any applicable regulatory guidelines for data protection. 4. Communicating transparently and proactively with the client, presenting the findings, risks, and recommended solutions. 5. Documenting all findings, communications, and decisions. 6. Collaborating with the client and potentially the third-party vendor to find the most effective and responsible resolution. Question 12. System analysis indicates that the IBM SmartCloud Control Desk V7 5 Service Request Management Implementation Project is facing significant pressure to go live within a compressed timeframe. The project manager has identified that a complete and accurate migration of historical service request data is crucial for the system's effectiveness. The current data cleansing and migration process is proving more time-consuming than initially estimated. Stakeholders are pushing for a good enough initial go-live, suggesting that only essential data be migrated, with the rest to follow in a later phase. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action for the project manager? Option A. Defer the decision on full data migration to the post-go-live phase, focusing solely on launching the core functionality of the Service Request Management System. Option B. Proceed with migrating only the data deemed essential by key stakeholders, with a verbal agreement to address the remaining data in a subsequent undefined phase. Option C. Implement the system with a partial data migration, prioritizing speed over completeness, and inform users that some historical data may be unavailable initially. Option D. Advocate for a delay in the go-live date to ensure a complete and accurate migration of all historical service request data, clearly communicating the risks associated with incomplete data to all stakeholders. Correct answer is D. Advocate for a delay in the go-live date to ensure a complete and accurate migration of all historical service request data, clearly communicating the risks associated with incomplete data to all stakeholders. Explanation. This scenario presents an ethical dilemma common in IT service management, specifically concerning the implementation of IBM Smart Cloud Control Desk, SCCD, V7 5 for service request management. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for a functional system with the ethical obligation to ensure data integrity and user trust. The project manager is faced with pressure to deliver quickly, potentially at the expense of thoroughness. The correct approach prioritizes data accuracy and user confidence, which are foundational to effective service request management. By advocating for a complete data migration and validation process, the project manager upholds the principles of professional integrity and responsible system implementation. This aligns with the implicit ethical guidelines of ensuring that implemented systems are reliable and trustworthy, preventing potential downstream issues caused by inaccurate data, such as misrouted requests, incorrect service level agreements (SLAs), or user dissatisfaction. This approach fosters long-term system adoption and minimizes the risk of reputational damage. An incorrect approach that bypasses thorough data validation to meet an arbitrary deadline is ethically unsound. It prioritizes expediency over accuracy, potentially leading to significant operational problems and user frustration. This failure to ensure data integrity can be seen as a breach of professional responsibility, as it knowingly introduces a flawed system into operation. Such an action erodes user trust and can have serious consequences for the organization's ability to deliver services effectively. Another incorrect approach, which involves selectively migrating only critical data without a clear, agreed-upon definition of criticality and a robust plan for handling the remaining data, is also problematic. This creates an incomplete and potentially misleading dataset, leading to inconsistent service delivery and an inability to provide comprehensive support. It demonstrates a lack of foresight and a failure to manage the implementation holistically, potentially violating principles of due diligence. Finally, an approach that defers the data migration issue to a later phase without a concrete plan or commitment is irresponsible. This essentially kicks the can down the road, creating a ticking time bomb of data integrity issues that will inevitably surface and require more complex and costly remediation. It signifies a failure to address a core component of the implementation effectively and ethically. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that involves identifying ethical considerations, assessing potential impacts on stakeholders, users, IT, business, evaluating available options against ethical principles and project objectives, and communicating transparently about risks and proposed solutions. In this case, the project manager must advocate for the necessary time and resources to ensure data quality, even if it means adjusting timelines, and clearly articulate the risks of not doing so. Question 13. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a customer has reported an issue with a recent billing statement that appears to be incorrect. The customer is becoming increasingly agitated and is requesting immediate access to their full financial transaction history within the system to verify the discrepancy. As a Tier 1 Service Desk Analyst for IBM SmartCloud Control Desk V7. 5. You have the ability to view certain customer account details, but not their complete financial transaction history, which is restricted to authorized billing personnel. The customer insists that you must provide this information to resolve their urgent concern. Option A. Inform the customer that you cannot directly access their full financial transaction history due to data privacy and security policies, and offer to escalate the request to the billing department for their review and direct communication with the customer. Option B. Advise the customer that you will need to share their request and the details of their financial transaction history with a colleague in the billing department to expedite the review process. Option C. Access the customer's full financial transaction history using your administrative privileges, as the customer is clearly distressed and requires immediate resolution. Option D. Explain to the customer that you can only view a limited summary of their account and suggest they contact their bank to resolve any billing discrepancies. The correct answer is A. Inform the customer that you cannot directly access their full financial transaction history due to data privacy and security policies, and offer to escalate the request to the billing department for their review and direct communication with the customer. Explanation. This scenario presents an ethical dilemma common in IT service management, specifically concerning data privacy and the responsible use of system capabilities within IBM SmartCloud Control Desk. The challenge lies in balancing the need for efficient problem resolution with the ethical obligation to protect sensitive customer information and adhere to data handling policies. A service desk analyst might be tempted to access information beyond their direct purview to expedite a resolution, but this action carries significant risks. The correct approach emphasizes adherence to established protocols and the principle of least privilege. By escalating the request to a supervisor or a specialized team, the analyst upholds data privacy regulations and internal security policies. This ensures that only authorized personnel with a legitimate business need access sensitive data, minimizing the risk of unauthorized disclosure or misuse. This aligns with best practices in data protection and IT governance, which are implicitly supported by the regulatory frameworks governing data handling in most jurisdictions. Accessing customer financial details without explicit authorization, even with good intentions, constitutes a breach of data privacy and potentially violates regulations concerning sensitive personal information. This action undermines trust and can lead to severe legal and reputational consequences for both the individual and the organization. Similarly, sharing this information with a colleague, even if they are also an employee, without proper authorization or a defined need-to-know basis, is a violation of data handling policies and privacy principles. It creates an unnecessary risk of data exposure and circumvents established security controls. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical conduct and regulatory compliance. This involves understanding the scope of their access and responsibilities, recognizing when a request exceeds their authorized capabilities, and knowing the correct escalation paths. When faced with a situation that might involve sensitive data or a deviation from standard procedures, the professional should pause, consult relevant policies and guidelines, and seek guidance from a supervisor or a designated compliance officer. The default action should always be to err on the side of caution and adhere strictly to established protocols. Question 14. Investigation of a sudden and widespread failure in the processing of critical service requests within IBM SmartCloud Control Desk V7. 5. Where users report requests are stuck in an in-progress status without any apparent system errors, requires a systematic approach to identify the root cause. Which of the following diagnostic and resolution strategies best aligns with professional IT service management practices for this scenario? Option A. Conduct a thorough review of the affected service request workflows, application configurations, and recent system logs, correlating findings with user-reported symptoms before escalating or implementing changes. Option B. Immediately engage the IBM SmartCloud Control Desk development team for a hotfix, assuming a core application bug. Option C. Perform an immediate rollback of the most recent application patch applied to the IBM SmartCloud Control Desk V7. 5. Environment, without further investigation. Option D. Initiate a network performance analysis and make immediate adjustments to firewall rules, suspecting a connectivity issue impacting the request processing. The correct answer is B. Immediately engage the IBM SmartCloud Control Desk development team for a hotfix, assuming a core application bug. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in service request management, where a critical business process is experiencing unexpected delays due to a perceived technical issue. The challenge lies in accurately diagnosing the root cause without disrupting ongoing operations or making premature assumptions. The urgency of the situation, coupled with potential impact on service delivery, necessitates a structured and evidence-based approach to problem resolution. Misdiagnosis can lead to wasted resources, prolonged downtime, and erosion of user trust. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic investigation that begins with verifying the reported symptoms and gathering detailed information from affected users and system logs. This is followed by a methodical analysis of the service request management, SRM, applications configuration, workflow definitions, and integration points. The focus is on identifying deviations from expected behavior or known issues documented within the IBM SmartCloud Control Desk V7. 5. Framework. This approach aligns with best practices in IT service management ITSM, as outlined by frameworks like ITIL, which emphasize problem management and root cause analysis. Specifically, it adheres to the principles of ensuring that solutions are based on verified data and that changes are implemented in a controlled manner to prevent further disruption. This methodical process minimizes the risk of implementing incorrect fixes and ensures that the underlying issue is addressed effectively, thereby restoring service and preventing recurrence. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to immediately escalate the issue to the application development team without conducting initial troubleshooting. This bypasses essential diagnostic steps within the SRM team's purview and can lead to unnecessary load on development resources. It also fails to leverage the expertise of the SRM administrators, who are best positioned to identify configuration or workflow-related problems within the V7. 5. Environment. This approach represents a failure in efficient problem management and resource allocation. Another incorrect approach would be to assume the issue is a network problem and begin making network configuration changes without evidence. This is a premature assumption that ignores the specific context of the service request and the SRM application. It risks introducing new problems into the network infrastructure and diverts attention from the actual cause within the SRM system. This demonstrates a lack of systematic problem solving and a failure to adhere to a structured diagnostic process. A third incorrect approach would be to immediately roll back recent changes to the SRM application without understanding the impact or necessity. While rollback is a valid recovery strategy, it should be a considered action based on evidence linking the recent changes to the observed problem. Forming a rollback without proper analysis can revert functional improvements or essential fixes, causing further disruption and potentially masking the true root cause. This approach lacks the due diligence required for effective change management and problem resolution. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured problem-solving methodology. This involves clearly defining the problem, gathering all relevant data, analyzing the data to identify potential causes, testing hypotheses, implementing a solution, and verifying its effectiveness. In the context of IBM SmartCloud Control Desk V7. 5. This means leveraging the application's built-in diagnostic tools, consulting its documentation, and engaging with the user community to understand the impact. When faced with service disruptions, the professional decision-making process should prioritize data-driven analysis over assumptions, ensuring that actions taken are targeted, controlled, and aimed at achieving a sustainable resolution, while minimizing risk to the operational environment. Question 15. Comparative studies suggest that optimizing service request management processes within IBM SmartCloud Control Desk V7. 5 can significantly improve operational efficiency. Considering the need for demonstrable compliance and user satisfaction, which of the following approaches would be considered the most professionally sound and ethically responsible for achieving process optimization? Option A. Implement changes based on anecdotal feedback from a few vocal users and IT staff, focusing on reducing the number of clicks or screens required to complete a request without formal measurement. Option B. Focus on automating as many steps as possible in the service request lifecycle, even if it means bypassing certain approval gates or validation checks to expedite resolution times. Option C. Immediately deploy all new features and advanced functionalities available in SCCD V7. 5. Assuming they will inherently optimize existing processes and address any issues that arise post-deployment. Option D. Conduct a thorough analysis of current service request workflows, establish baseline performance metrics, identify key bottlenecks through data, and then implement targeted, measurable improvements with user validation. Correct answer is A. Implement changes based on anecdotal feedback from a few vocal users and IT staff, focusing on reducing the number of clicks or screens required to complete a request without formal measurement. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT service management, balancing the need for efficient process optimization with the imperative to maintain compliance and user satisfaction. The implementation of IBM SmartCloud Control Desk, SCCD V7. 5 for service request management, SRM, requires a structured approach to process improvement. The challenge lies in identifying and implementing changes that genuinely enhance efficiency without introducing new risks, violating established service-level agreements, SLAs, or negatively impacting the user experience. The pressure to demonstrate quick wins can sometimes lead to hasty decisions that overlook critical dependencies or regulatory requirements. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach focuses on a systematic, data-driven, and user-centric methodology for process optimization. This aligns with best practices in IT service management frameworks like ITIL, which emphasize continuous improvement. By first establishing baseline metrics, identifying bottlenecks through analysis, and then implementing targeted changes with clear success criteria, the organization ensures that optimizations are measurable and effective. User feedback is crucial for validating improvements and ensuring that the changes are beneficial from an end-user perspective. This approach minimizes disruption, reduces the risk of unintended consequences, and provides a clear audit trail for compliance purposes. In the context of SCCD V7. 5. This means leveraging the platform's reporting and workflow capabilities to understand current performance, and to implement refined workflows. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing changes without establishing baseline metrics is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It prevents objective measurement of improvement, making it impossible to demonstrate compliance with SLAs or to justify the changes to auditors. This lack of data can lead to a perception of arbitrary decision-making. Focusing solely on reducing the number of steps in a workflow without considering the impact on control points or validation stages is another failure. This can inadvertently weaken internal controls, potentially leading to errors, security vulnerabilities, or non-compliance with data handling regulations. It prioritizes speed over integrity, which is unacceptable in regulated environments. Prioritizing the implementation of new features from SCCD v7. 5. Without a clear understanding of how they address existing process inefficiencies is also problematic. This can lead to the adoption of complex functionalities that do not solve the core issues, increasing system complexity and training overhead without delivering tangible benefits. It represents a failure to conduct proper needs assessment and can lead to wasted resources and potential compliance issues if the new features introduce unforeseen risks. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach process optimization by first understanding the current state through data collection and analysis. This involves defining key performance indicators, KPI, and establishing baseline metrics. Next, identify specific pain points and bottlenecks within the service request lifecycle. Then, brainstorm potential solutions, prioritizing those that are aligned with business objectives and regulatory requirements. Before implementing any changes, conduct a thorough impact assessment, considering technical, operational, and compliance implications. Pilot testing and user acceptance testing are crucial steps to validate the effectiveness and usability of the proposed changes. Finally, implement changes in a controlled manner, monitor their performance against established metrics, and iterate as necessary. This structured, evidence-based approach ensures that optimizations are beneficial, compliant, and sustainable. Question 16. Process analysis reveals that a significant number of service requests submitted through IBM SmartCloud Control Desk v7. 5 are experiencing extended resolution times, leading to user dissatisfaction. The current workflow involves multiple manual handoffs and approval steps that appear to be the primary cause of these delays. Which of the following approaches best addresses this process optimization challenge within the context of a v7.5 SCCD implementation? Option A. Focus on increasing the staffing levels of the support teams without altering the existing SCCD workflow, assuming more resources will inherently reduce resolution times. Option B. Conduct a detailed review of the service request lifecycle within SCCD, identifying specific bottlenecks in the approval and fulfillment stages, and then reconfigure workflow rules and automation within SCCD to streamline these steps, potentially by introducing conditional approvals or parallel processing where appropriate. Option C. Implement a new, separate ticketing system for high-priority requests to ensure faster turnaround, while continuing to use SCCD for standard requests. Option D. Advise users to submit requests via email directly to the support teams responsible for fulfillment, bypassing the SCCD portal to expedite resolution. The correct answer is B. Conduct a detailed review of the service request lifecycle within SCCD, identifying specific bottlenecks in the approval and fulfillment stages, and then reconfigure workflow rules and automation within SCCD to streamline these steps, potentially by introducing conditional approvals or parallel processing where appropriate. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in service request management, SRM, implementation, balancing the desire for efficiency with the need for robust process adherence and user satisfaction. The professional challenge lies in identifying the root cause of the perceived inefficiency and implementing a solution that addresses it without introducing new risks or violating established best practices for IBM SmartCloud Control Desk, SCCD, v7. 5. The correct approach focuses on understanding the underlying reasons for the delays and implementing targeted improvements within the existing SCCD framework. This aligns with best professional practice by leveraging the capabilities of the implemented system, ensuring compliance with the intended workflow, and promoting a culture of continuous improvement. It prioritizes data-driven decision-making and user feedback, which are crucial for successful IT service management (ITSM) implementations. An incorrect approach that bypasses standard SCCD workflows or introduces ad hoc methods fails to address the systemic issues. This can lead to a lack of auditability, increased risk of errors, and a fragmented user experience. Such an approach might also violate the principles of structured service request fulfillment, potentially leading to non-compliance with internal governance or industry standards if they were implicitly or explicitly part of the implementation guidelines for SCCD v7. 5. For instance, circumventing approval workflows without proper justification or documentation undermines the control mechanisms designed to ensure appropriate resource allocation and risk mitigation. Another incorrect approach that focuses solely on superficial changes without investigating the root cause is also professionally unsound. This often results in wasted effort and a failure to achieve sustainable improvements. It demonstrates a lack of analytical rigor and a superficial understanding of process optimization. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, thoroughly analyze the current process, gathering data and user feedback to identify bottlenecks and inefficiencies. Second, evaluate potential solutions, considering their impact on efficiency, user experience, compliance, and the overall SCCD implementation. Third, prioritize solutions based on their potential return on investment and alignment with organizational goals. Finally, implement, monitor, and iterate on the chosen solutions, ensuring continuous improvement. Question 17. To address the challenge of suboptimal user adoption and perceived inefficiencies in the current service request management process within IBM SmartCloud Control Desk v7. 5. Which of the following approaches would best facilitate sustainable process optimization and enhance overall service delivery effectiveness? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive as-is process analysis, gather user feedback. Design A to B optimized process incorporating ITSM best practices and SCCD v7. 5 capabilities, and implement it through a phased approach with continuous monitoring. Option B. Focus solely on upgrading SCCD v7. 5 to the latest available patch level, assuming that technical improvements will inherently resolve process inefficiencies. Option C. Immediately implement a series of new custom workflows and automation scripts within SCCD v7. 5 based on the most frequently reported user complaints, without a formal process review. Option D. Encourage users to bypass SCCD v7. 5 for urgent requests, and revert to email or direct communication with support teams to expedite fulfillment. Correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive as-is process analysis, gather user feedback, design A to B optimized process incorporating ITSM best practices and SCCD v7. 5 capabilities, and implement it through a phased approach with continuous monitoring. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in service request management (SRM) implementation where the initial process design, while functional, is not achieving optimal efficiency or user satisfaction. The pressure to deliver a solution quickly can sometimes lead to a good enough approach rather than a best practice approach. The professional challenge lies in identifying the root cause of inefficiencies and proposing a sustainable, compliant, and user-centric solution without disrupting ongoing operations or violating any established IBM Smart Cloud Control Desk (SCCD) v7. 5 implementation guidelines or regulatory frameworks relevant to the exam's jurisdiction. The need for process optimization implies a continuous improvement mindset, which is crucial for long-term success and user adoption. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic and data-driven methodology for process optimization. This begins with a thorough analysis of the current as-is state, identifying bottlenecks, redundancies, and areas of user frustration. This analysis should leverage metrics and feedback gathered directly from SCCD v7. 5 usage and user interactions. Following this, A to B process is designed, incorporating best practices for SRM, such as clear escalation paths, automated workflows where appropriate, and streamlined request submission and fulfillment. Crucially, this involves engaging stakeholders, including end users and IT support teams, to ensure the proposed changes are practical and well received. The implementation of the optimized process should be phased, with pilot testing and continuous monitoring to validate its effectiveness and make further adjustments. This approach aligns with the principles of effective IT service management (ITSM) frameworks and the inherent capabilities of SCCD v7. 5. For streamlining service delivery. It prioritizes user experience and operational efficiency, which are key objectives of any successful SRM implementation. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to implement significant, unvalidated changes based solely on anecdotal feedback, without a structured analysis of the current process. This risks introducing new problems, alienating users, and potentially violating the intended design principles of SCCD v7. 5. Leading to system instability or non-compliance with internal governance. Another incorrect approach is to focus solely on technical enhancements within SCCD v7. 5. Without considering the human element and the end-to-end service delivery process. This might involve adding complex features that are not well understood by users or support staff, thereby increasing complexity rather than reducing it, and failing to address the core inefficiencies. A third incorrect approach would be to revert to manual processes or bypass SCCD v7. 5. For certain request types to achieve perceived speed. This undermines the purpose of implementing a centralized SRM system, creates data silos, increases the risk of errors, and is a direct contravention of best practices for using an integrated ITSM solution like SCCD v7. 5. It also negates the investment made in the system and its potential for reporting and auditing. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured problem-solving framework. When faced with process inefficiencies, the first step is always to understand the current state through data and observation. This is followed by identifying root causes, not just symptoms. Next, potential solutions should be brainstormed, evaluated against criteria such as feasibility, impact, cost, and alignment with system capabilities and organizational goals. The chosen solution should then be designed, tested, and implemented with a clear change management plan. Continuous monitoring and feedback loops are essential for ongoing optimization. This systematic approach ensures that solutions are effective, sustainable, and aligned with professional standards and the intended benefits of the implemented technology. Question 18. The monitoring system demonstrates a consistent pattern of increased resolution times for critical service requests, indicating a potential bottleneck in the current workflow. Which of the following actions is the most appropriate next step to optimize the process? Option A. Implement a temporary workaround by increasing the number of manual checks within the existing workflow to expedite processing. Option B. Immediately reassign all critical service requests to a different team to bypass the current bottleneck. Option C. Instruct all service desk agents to prioritize critical requests above all other tasks without investigating the underlying cause of the delays. Option D. Initiate a formal process review, including a root cause analysis of the delays, and develop targeted improvement strategies based on the findings. Correct answer is D. Initiate a formal process review, including a root cause analysis of the delays, and develop targeted improvement strategies based on the findings. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT service management, balancing the need for continuous improvement with the potential disruption of established processes. The monitoring system's findings highlight a deviation from optimal performance, directly impacting the efficiency of service request fulfillment. The professional challenge lies in identifying the most effective and compliant method to address this inefficiency without introducing new risks or violating established IBM SmartCloud Control Desk v7. 5 guidelines or any implied regulatory framework for service management best practices. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the identified process inefficiency through a structured, data-driven methodology aligned with ITIL principles, which are foundational to IBM SmartCloud Control Desk. This involves a root cause analysis to understand the underlying issues, followed by the implementation of targeted improvements. This systematic approach ensures that changes are well considered, tested, and documented, minimizing the risk of unintended consequences and maximizing the likelihood of sustained improvement. It adheres to the spirit of continuous service improvement, CSI, inherent in service management frameworks. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate, drastic changes without proper analysis risks creating more problems than it solves. This could lead to a violation of process integrity, potentially impacting service levels and user satisfaction, which are key performance indicators in service management. Another incorrect approach that ignores the monitoring data altogether represents a failure in proactive service management and a disregard for continuous improvement, which can lead to a gradual degradation of service quality and increased operational costs over time. A third incorrect approach that involves implementing a solution without proper testing or stakeholder buy-in could result in system instability, user resistance, and ultimately, a failure to achieve the desired process optimization, potentially leading to non-compliance with internal service level agreements or external regulatory expectations for service delivery. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes understanding the problem before implementing solutions. This involves 1. Acknowledging and validating the data from the monitoring system. 2. Conducting a thorough root cause analysis to pinpoint the exact reasons for the inefficiency. 3. Evaluating potential solutions based on their impact, feasibility, and alignment with existing frameworks and best practices. 4. Piloting or testing proposed changes in a controlled environment. 5. Implementing changes with proper communication and training. 6. Monitoring the impact of the changes to ensure they have achieved the desired outcome and to identify any new issues. Question 19. The evaluation methodology shows that the current service request management process within IBM SmartCloud Control Desk v7.5 is experiencing significant delays in fulfillment, leading to user dissatisfaction. Which of the following approaches would best address this issue while adhering to best practices for process optimization in a live operational environment? Option A. Immediately implement a completely new, untested service request workflow designed by an external consultant, bypassing current operational procedures to ensure rapid change. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive analysis of current service request fulfillment metrics and user feedback to identify specific bottlenecks, then implement targeted iterative improvements with stakeholder validation. Option C. Focus on automating every possible step of the service request process without first understanding the root causes of existing delays or assessing the impact on user experience. Option D. Rely on anecdotal complaints from a few vocal users to dictate a series of ad hoc changes to the existing workflow without formal data analysis or impact assessment. Correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive analysis of current service request fulfillment metrics and user feedback to identify specific bottlenecks, then implement targeted, iterative improvements with stakeholder validation. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in service request management, SRM, implementation where the initial process design, while functional, has become a bottleneck impacting overall efficiency and user satisfaction. The professional challenge lies in identifying and implementing process optimizations without disrupting ongoing service delivery or introducing new risks. Careful judgment is required to balance the need for improvement with the imperative of maintaining stability and compliance within the IBM Smart Cloud Control Desk v7.5 framework. The correct approach focuses on a data-driven, iterative refinement of existing processes. This aligns with best professional practices by ensuring that changes are based on measurable outcomes and user feedback, minimizing disruption. It adheres to the principles of continuous improvement inherent in IT service management (ITSM) frameworks, which are implicitly supported by the operational guidelines for implementing solutions like IBM Smart Cloud Control Desk. By analyzing metrics and engaging stakeholders, this approach ensures that optimizations are targeted, effective, and aligned with business objectives, thereby enhancing service delivery and user experience. An incorrect approach that relies solely on anecdotal evidence or a top-down mandate without proper analysis risks implementing changes that are not aligned with actual pain points or may introduce unintended consequences. This could lead to decreased efficiency, increased user frustration, and potential non-compliance with operational procedures or service-level agreements, SLAs, that are critical for maintaining a stable and reliable service. Another incorrect approach that involves a complete overhaul without phased implementation or thorough testing is highly disruptive. This can lead to significant downtime, data integrity issues, and a failure to meet critical service delivery objectives. Such an approach disregards the need for a controlled and managed change process, which is a fundamental tenet of IT governance and operational stability. A further incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over thoroughness, such as implementing changes without adequate stakeholder consultation or impact assessment, result in solutions that do not meet user needs or create new operational challenges. This can lead to a decline in service quality and potentially violate implicit or explicit service level commitments. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Assess the current state. Understand existing processes. Identify bottlenecks through data analysis, e.g., ticket resolution times, user feedback. System logs. 2. Define desired outcomes. Clearly articulate what success looks like in terms of efficiency, user satisfaction, and compliance. 3. Evaluate potential solutions. Research and propose specific optimization strategies, considering their impact on the IBM SmartCloud Control Desk v7. 5. Environment. 4. Prioritize and plan. Select the most impactful and feasible optimizations. Develop a phased implementation plan with clear rollback strategies. 5. Implement and monitor. Execute changes in a controlled manner. Continuously monitor performance against defined metrics and gather feedback. 6. Iterate and refine. Based on monitoring and feedback, make further adjustments to achieve optimal performance and user experience. Question 20. What factors determine the ethical course of action for an IBM SmartCloud Control Desk v7? 5. Service request management implementation consultant who discovers a pre-existing personal financial interest in a third-party vendor being evaluated for integration. And how should this situation be managed to uphold professional integrity and client trust? Option A. The consultant should proceed with the evaluation and recommend the vendor if they genuinely believe it is the best solution, downplaying the personal relationship to avoid unnecessary client concern. Option B. The consultant should immediately disclose their pre-existing relationship with the vendor to the client and recuse themselves from any further evaluation or recommendation regarding that vendor's integration. Option C. The consultant should subtly guide the client's decision-making process away from other potential vendors without explicitly mentioning their relationship with the vendor in question. Option D. The consultant should continue with the evaluation and only disclose the relationship if specifically asked by the client about potential conflicts of interest. The correct answer is B. The consultant should immediately disclose their pre-existing relationship with the vendor to the client and recuse themselves from any further evaluation or recommendation regarding that vendor's integration. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents an ethical dilemma where a consultant implementing IBM Smart Cloud Control Desk (SCCD) v7 5 Service Request Management (SRM) discovers a potential conflict of interest. The consultant has a pre-existing relationship with a third-party vendor whose product is being considered for integration with SCCD. This situation is professionally challenging because it blurs the lines between objective recommendation and personal gain, potentially compromising the integrity of the implementation and the client's best interests. Careful judgment is required to navigate this conflict transparently and ethically. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach is to immediately disclose the pre-existing relationship to the client and recuse oneself from any decision-making processes involving the vendor in question. This represents best professional practice because it upholds the principles of transparency, honesty, and client advocacy. By disclosing the conflict, the consultant demonstrates integrity and allows the client to make informed decisions, free from the influence of undisclosed personal interests. This aligns with general ethical guidelines for IT professionals and consultants, which emphasize acting in the client's best interest and avoiding situations that could lead to a compromise of professional judgment. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to proceed with recommending the vendor without disclosure, rationalizing that the vendor's product is genuinely the best fit. This is ethically unacceptable because it violates the principle of transparency. The client is denied crucial information that could influence their decision, and the consultant's objectivity is compromised, even if unintentionally. This could lead to a breach of trust and potential legal or contractual repercussions if the conflict is later discovered. Another incorrect approach is to subtly steer the client away from other vendors without explicitly mentioning the relationship, hoping to avoid a direct conflict. This is also professionally unacceptable as it is a form of deception. While not a direct recommendation of the favored vendor, it still manipulates the decision-making process based on personal interest rather than objective evaluation, undermining the consultant's role as an impartial advisor. A third incorrect approach is to continue with the evaluation, but to downplay the significance of the relationship to the client. This is ethically flawed because it misrepresents the potential for bias. Even a seemingly minor relationship can influence perception and judgment, and minimizing its importance does not negate the inherent conflict of interest. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such dilemmas should follow a structured decision-making process. First, identify the potential conflict of interest. Second, assess the nature and severity of the conflict. Third, consult relevant professional codes of conduct or organizational policies. Fourth, prioritize transparency and disclose the conflict to all affected parties, especially the client. Fifth, if the conflict cannot be mitigated or managed effectively, recuse oneself from the decision-making process. This framework ensures that client interests remain paramount and that professional integrity is maintained.